Hello KFC Supercoaches, teams are in for round 13. It's the first big bye. We've been planning for this for a long time. Ian Maybanks, the mastermind, is with us, and certainly you've been planning for this week for a long time as well. How many are you getting on the park?
Pre-trades, I've got 11, but that does include Lachlan Miller, and I'm not happy about that one a bit.
Yes.
So I'll get to 13 for sure this week using 3 trades.
Yeah, nice. 13 for me, but also 3 trades. Plus, I've got a couple of guys up my sleeve who I desperately don't want to play, who may end up in that 13 as well. Let's chat winners and losers. Obviously, a lot of the winners and losers already were announced on Monday with the Origin teams. Plus, a whole bunch of things happened today, including Lachlan Miller getting benched, which is huge for people who own him. Onto the winners list, Damien Cook. He's the most purchased player this week, having missed Origin selection. For me, it's... look, I don't quite understand it. And the main reason is that I think Harry Grant is so good in that position. And with the new best 13 bye rules, there is no reason to sell your hookers and your halves, your 5/8s, your fullbacks, etc. Because if you run out without a halfback or a hooker this week, that will get absorbed by the other positions. You still pick a 17 and then the best 13 comes from that, regardless of position. So the old school view of picking, thinking that you need a hooker in there this week just to get a number on the field is not right anymore.
Yeah, mate. I think as well, Cook's form is down. He's still getting through the work. The attacking numbers aren't there. 8 tries, 8 try assists last year. He's only had 1 try, 4 try assists this year. The Bunnies aren't getting the numbers through the middle. It's all happening out wide for them. So, Cook looks good value. He's lost 200K, but he's pretty much where he's priced at what he's doing. And I don't think ditching Harry, the best hooker, for Cook long term. I think you can just hold Harry and get through this period. And it's what I'm going to be doing as well.
Yeah, I agree. Plus, Harry's got to doesn't look like he'll play 80 minutes in Origin. Plus, he has a long turnaround from that Origin clash to the Storm's next clash. So I think he'll play big minutes in that game anyway, and certainly play. So I feel that round 14 is actually a little bit tougher than this week, given that it's best 17. Plus, you've got Origin players backing up. Plus, you have 3 really tricky sides on the bye. So for me, Harry Grant is a definite hold. One guy who has piqued my interest, though, Kalen Ponga, misses out for the Maroons. So he's a definite option for Supercoach this week with dual positioning. Obviously, the concussion risk is always there, but at that price, he's definitely standing out to me.
Yeah, mate, the break-even's -7. So, look, he steps on the field and he, at least plays a half. If he does cop that head knock, he's still going to make a bit of money. It's not going to be a total bomb of a trade. So I think it's a great matchup too. The Knights have only got Frizzell out. Manly are missing all their turbos. DCE, Sunday afternoon at home. Ponga could put on an absolute show here. He'd be pretty disappointed to miss that Queensland team. He might even have the goal kicking. There's potential for Ponga to go really large here. I'm very tempted to pick him up. So
yeah, I like it. The concussion risk is the only thing turning me off, but at that price, it's almost it is a risk worth taking for many, depending on your team situation. Campbell Graham, he made the Origin squad, then got withdrawn from the Origin squad due to a sternum injury. Now he has been named to play this weekend. If you own him, it's a huge boost. There's 13% who own him, and he's the best centre winger in Supercoach this year by a considerable distance. So well done if you're on already, but I wouldn't be paying the money to get him into my team this week.
No, absolutely not. I think you can take Flyers and other centre wingers this week. There's some good matchups around. So if you've got him, that's a number you probably didn't think you'd had. So that's great. That's a little bonus. Yeah.
Jackson Ford, he's back in action as we predicted as well. He's missed the last 2 weeks with a concussion and then the bye, but he'll be a crucial extra number. On to the losers. Reece Walsh was somewhat of a shock to be named in that Origin team. that means he's not available for Supercoaches this week. So he's the fourth most sold player. Look, I think that probably makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. His form to the start of the season was incredible. Averaged almost 100 over that first stint. It's fallen back a bit with the tougher draw the Broncos have faced, and I think you probably got out of him what you needed to. Assuming he plays all three Origin games, then you can probably move to another fullback who give you better coverage through that bye period.
Tom Trbojevic, another guy who was a bit of a catch-22 with him. If he went poorly last week, it meant that he would have missed the Origin squad, so would have been available for this round. But, of course, he produced when it mattered most and has won that Origin spot. So not available this week. If you did own him, what would you be doing after that 160-odd on the weekend?
It's really tough because he's got the bye next week as well.
Yeah.
So you're gonna be holding up a valuable fullback spot with Turbo through 13, 14, 16. You might only get him for around 15 out of the next batch of games. So you'd almost have to hold him to reap the benefits of the price rises there. If you're well placed with the money and you don't need it, I think you can sort of take the big score from last week and move along.
Moving on to Lachlan Miller, you mentioned him, but he's been benched. There was the chat that he would be dropped altogether, but he's on the bench, presumably as concussion cover for Kalen Ponga. So look, one little knock to Kalen Ponga, and Lachlan Miller's back in playing big minutes and being an absolute Supercoach gun. But I tend to agree with you. If you do own him, he does have to go. But what a week for him to get dropped out of the team. First of all, we weren't even expecting that Kalen Ponga would get dropped from the Origin side. And then not only that, but he gets dropped and moves to fullback as well.
Yeah, mate. I generally was looking at Lachie Miller playing Manly on a Sunday arvo as my probable captaincy option for this one, you know. And now he's on the bench and he's going to be going out altogether. So I think fair enough. Like, he had a shocker last week. The errors were through the roof against the Sharks and nothing really worked for him. And maybe Ponga wants a shot at fullback for a few games to sort of show to Billy that he's still got the goods there. So I don't think Lachie Miller, as good as he's been, I think you just got to cut him loose now. You don't want to bench guy, and he's 600 K now. If he comes on for Crossland and plays 5 minutes, he probably loses another massive chunk of cash. So you probably just want to cash him out.
Yep, I tend to agree, particularly with that bye coming next week. And as I mentioned, that bye is particularly tricky. Send your questions through. Francis is asking, this is on Facebook, when is Sailor available? I need him for draft purposes. So the guys who got named today will be added tomorrow morning to Supercoach. So he should be in there by tomorrow morning. Question from Todd. He's asking, I have 13 already without trading. Is it worth going Miller to Ponga? For me, if you've got 13 already, there's no point. I'd be holding off on that.
I guess the thing with Ponga is I think he shapes as a really good captaincy shout. So if you feel like you want to have a real swing at Ponga against Manly on Sunday, then yeah, I could get behind it.
Danny is saying, I'm trading Tohu for either Preston, Ford or Hosking. Which of those would you be selling first? First of all, Ford's playing this week, so I'd be holding him. So it's down to Preston and Hosking. Hosking's minutes are getting lower and lower by the week, basically. So for me, Hosking probably goes first, even though he's been great for Supercoach this year. Yeah,
I think Hosking might bounce back over Origin with Martin and Yeo. Obviously going to play some decent minutes for New South Wales. So I think Hosking might come back, but that's still that's a fair way away. I think Preston's shown he can jag tries, and he's got the 80 every week. The Panthers' edge rotation has been a bit frustrating for those of us who've had Garner and then Hosking, and Jamin Salmon seems to come in almost every week and sneak minutes off somebody there. So if you need to make it happen through someone, Hosking, yeah.
More losers. Unfortunately, Ryan Madison has a calf injury. So a guy that a lot of people were buying specifically for this round has been ruled out. It's another blow for him, but good for Jermaine Hopgood.
Oh, absolutely. That para pack is decimated. I think Campbell Gillard gone, Junior Barlow on origin duty, Sean Lane out.
Yeah.
It's, I saw off-end Gowie's been named today in the front row, so they get something back there, but still it's very skinny. If you've got Hopgood, you're just loving it, because he had that dip in minutes and now he's back up again. And I cut him then. I think I'll bring him back this week. I can afford to cover him in 14 the way I'm set up. So, and for me, the Cows have been pretty ordinary. I can see Hopgood offloads galore through the middle this week.
Yeah, I agree. I really do like Hopgood, but for next week in round 14, I'll be playing, if not short, then very close to it. That's before bringing Hopgood in. So I just don't think I can do it for this week, because it'll stuff me up for next week. But then in round 15, I'm really keen to get on all para players, really, because their bye schedule from there is just an absolute dream. So for me, it's Hopgood in round 15. But if you can cover him next week, absolutely get on this round.
Yeah, count your numbers.
Definitely count your numbers and have a look at 14. I actually think it's tougher than this week coming up. Ben Trebojevic out with a hamstring injury, so he was one of the popular cheapies from last week. That's a blow. And if you've been living under a rock and you're a beginner to SuperCoach, I just want to point out that Origin players are out this week. Plus, you've got a bunch of teams on the bye, 7 teams on the bye, and the Bulldogs, Panthers, Roosters, Sharks, Storm, Titans, Tigers. So it is a tough week. Make sure you get some numbers on the park. Onto the bye list, Tohu Harris. I think he probably is the best buy for this round. He's a keeper to the end of the year. The issue I have is that I've already owned him this season and been forced to sell him due to that ongoing knee issue. That's the problem for him. He's getting on a little bit, and we don't know how many games he's going to play between now and the end of the year.
I think you've got to trade him on how the Warriors have used him when he is fit. It's 80 minutes. It's 77 points per game, SuperCoach, It's dual position player. It's a great option. I think they're just using Tohu as much as they can, and if he can play the 80, he'll do it, and he's fresh. They've had the bye. I think you can bank on Tohu, and the duels are fantastic. If you've got Tapane, Horsburgh, DeBellin, you can really cycle those guys through those positions, and you might be coming to the point in your season where if Tohu does miss a week or whatever, you can shuffle somebody up or down amongst those guys to cover.
Cody Walker is a guy you were speaking about off air just before. Said that you were pretty keen on him until Ponga came along. I own Cody Walker, and I didn't pay the price that he is this week. It's about $800K, so you're looking at a fairly steep price for him, but I think that he is a captaincy option this week for sure. It's a nice little try assist for him on the weekend. Won't have his mate Latrell Mitchell by his side this week, but it still looks like the Rabbitohs have a pretty decent side taking the puck.
Yeah, they've had a real tough start to the season. He still scored so well through it, and I think if you look at their draw through this period, it gets even softer. I think Cody could continue this form. The worry with paying up that big is that Cody dips back down to 500. He seems to do those sort of roller coaster prices through the season, be up and down and up and down. But I'm looking at him this week at home against the Raiders, then the Titans, the Dragons, the Cowboys. You couldn't ask for much better than that in terms of fixtures.
Yep.
If you're going to sell Nico down to Cody, there's a worry that Cody might pull out a couple 50s and you lose your cash. That's the only sort of worry for me with Cody, is the Rabbitohs might have one of those games like they did at the start of the season where they just go right and Ilias gets the points and Cody sits there with nothing, and then
Onto
It's a
the
struggle to get
holds.
Nico.
Onto the holds. I've got Harry Grant as number one, and we both agree on that. But Nico Hines, number two. I'll be holding. As I said before, I don't see the point in holding these key position. Sorry, I don't see the point in selling these key position guys when it's the best 13 rule, and you pick a 17, and regardless of position, your best 13 comes out of that. So you don't need to have a halfback and a fullback and a hooker running around in these buy rounds like you have in the past. So I'm holding the best guys in that position and then rotating my guys in other positions like centre wing, back row, etc. That's my plan. So Nico's going to stay in, but you might have a different view.
I think just looking at the draw, I've got Nico's playing 14 and 15 out of the next, 2 games out of the next 13, 16, 17, 19. He's going to miss all those. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at Nico from 13 to 17 and saying he's going to play only 2 out of the next 5. Can I get, for what Nico averages, 100, can I get more out of full games from somebody else there? And I think, looking at the draw of a guy like Cody Walker and that lineup there, Katoa can go up, Nico out, Cody Walker in, that he can well cover what Nico might do. And I don't think Nico's a captaincy candidate in 14 or 15 anyway, because I'm looking at Cleary has the Dragons in 14, so I'll probably want to captain Cleary there over Hines. And Cleary against the pretty scratchy Roosters in 15, I'd probably take Cleary over Hines playing Storm away there for sure. So I don't think Nico's the captain. I've also got Latrell, who's got Titans and Dragons in those rounds. So for me, Nico would be my third choice captain. So I can definitely see how it would work for me. Maybe in your squad it doesn't, but the thing is, we've seen this in years past, and anybody who did the Cleary to Moses trade, which was a bit of a hot one around Magic Round, is that Cleary's completely burnt those guys by just stacking up hundreds. So I think, if the window for Nico is 2 games, then it's less chance of him hurting you. You maybe want to bring him back in 18 when he plays Dragons.
You're really talking down my Dragons here. Look, we're back with the new coach. We're looking good, particularly if we play at Cogra Oval. You can feel the history as you walk in through there, and the boys are always going to fire up at that ground. But no, 100% agree on Nico and his draw. It is not ideal coming up. Payne Haas, would you consider at all selling him? He's just so good in that position and such a banker. And generally plays big minutes for the Broncos as well, regardless of whether he's backing up. So there's no thought of selling Haas for me.
Yeah, I think he's just an absolute machine, and he'll back up and do well. We've sort of seen him come back to the field a little bit last week. I thought he put up massive numbers against the Panthers, but Carrigan was the guy who did it last week. So I think Payne, you can keep him. I think if you want to captain these guys, then keep them. If you want to move to a guy who's going to give you more games and similar output, I can get behind it. But just, be aware of how many trades you've got left and how fast you're going to burn through them.
I'm going to put another Origin player to you who I think probably is a sell. It's Cameron Murray. It hasn't been quite as good as we expect from him for most of the season, really. Plus, you can get some guys in the positions that he's in that can cover him pretty well with better draws. So Cameron Murray, do you sell, even though you're losing a fair bit of money by trading him now?
Oh, mate, I sold him, I think, 3 weeks ago. It's pretty evident he's not producing what we want. He's playing, good by NRL standards, but it's not the SuperCoach game that we've seen him have in the past. And for those of us who started Cam Murray, and for those who maybe went with Fafita, there's been a 60-point per game swing on that in the last 5 rounds. Fafita's averaged 105 to Murray's 47, That's a 300-point gap for Fafita owners and Murray owners. Ouch.
And our final couple of sells, we've got Zach Hosking there, who I think we both agree is a sell ideally. But one guy we haven't spoken about, or we kind of touched on, but Jacob Preston. For me, it's a reluctant sell. He goes for me this week, but I can see why you would hold him from here onwards. But look, he's done his job for me, so he goes for a keeper this week.
I like him still. He's still playing the 80, and he's shown, good attacking output as well as the work. So, and he'll cover you the next 2 buys. So if you can get through this week, by holding him, then he's going to be really valuable 16, 19. See, again, count your numbers. But I think Presto, he could be a guy who sits there long term for me.
Let's run through each of the games. We've got the Dolphins v the Dragons. News at the Dolphins is they've obviously lost Tom Gilbert and the Hammer to Origin. So Nikorima goes to fullback in place of Hamaso Tapuai-Fidow. They've got Mark Nichols back into that team as well. And Tafare, who was the gun cheapie from a couple of weeks ago, has been named on the bench. So a lot to get through here, but Tafare on the bench to start with. Are you one of those guys that got on early with him?
No, I didn't. There's some comments from Wayne Bennett last week where he said he probably only wants to use him 8-10 games this year. So I don't think at any point is he going to sort of get in and get that big stint maybe we want. But that's interesting. Seeing him on the bench, you and 8 can easily move into the back row and maybe Big Val slots into the centres. That's a team list that's full of some interesting things, like Nikorima at fullback when you've got Tessie New and Osako who've got stacks of NRL experience there. I kind of feel like maybe Bennett's going to shuffle the deck a bit closer to game day, so I'd watch that pretty closely.
Nikorima is very popular this week, and I can see why Rob Sutherland was trying to talk me into him today, saying that he could fix your problem at 5'8" if you've got Isaiah Katoa there, or you could bring him in at hooker as well for someone like Sonny Luke. For me, it doesn't quite work for my team, but I can see why people are getting on with the negative break even.
Yeah, he's probably got, if he has a good game this weekend against the Dragons, then he could probably make another 150K for you. So, there's still a little bit more money per Cody to squeeze out. And he's had try assists, I think, for the last 5 games, he's had really good numbers on that front. So, the combo he had with Lemuelu's nice. Swinging around the back at fullback, he's a chance for even more try assists. So, I think, he's... it's an interesting one. It's not for me, but if you are worried about, Sonny Luke or Katoa or whatever, then it's probably an upgrade on those guys. But, yeah.
Moving on to the Dragons, they got Jack Bird back after he was a late withdrawal last week, but Blake Laurie out with an injured hand. There are lots of pods standing out in this team for me. Jack Bird I was on last week and then had to change the trade during the round to Jack DeBellin. So I think Bird and DeBellin are both standing out to me. And the guy that's in the real pod range who is kind of untapped this year is Zach Lomax, who looks like mentally he was back in the game last weekend and he has been a SuperCoach gun in the past. Thoughts on those 3 guys?
I think, we love a dual second row centre. Bird, yep. I think Bird's top of base and power averages, mid-50s per game. So you just know what you're going to get from him. So if that's something that you like to have in your centres, you can use him, move him up and down over this bye period, be pretty handy. The missing a game for the knee soreness, it's a bit of a worry because who knows when that'll pop up again. Same sort of thing we talk about with Tohu. But I think DeBellin's numbers are outstanding. You probably wanted to pick him up maybe 3-4 weeks ago, but he's still doing it. He's got duels. The only thing that puts me off some of these Dragons guys, and Lomax in particular, is Panthers in round 14, Bunnies in round 15. I think they're probably up there, close to the 2 best defences in the comp. Definitely the Panthers are the best. So if you bring in Lomax looking for a big hit this week, he's probably going to hit the wall next week in a big way.
Eels v the Cowboys. At the Eels, they got Joe Hoffa-Hengawe straight in. So it was confirmed at about 3:59 today that the transfer was on. Little bit of consternation whether he was actually named or not, but he is in there in jersey number 10. They've got no Barlow, no Madison, no Andrew Davies. So very depleted pack this week. So that should mean good minutes for Jermaine Hopgood. Who else is standing out for you here? Mitch Moses is popular this week. Anyone else popping out?
Geez, there's a lot of great options at the Eels. I think the thing you do need to consider what you've got for 14 and how over invested you want to be in Eels, because you'll get into trouble round 14. But there's lots of ways you could go there. I've got Dylan Brown already. He's in fantastic form and could tear up the Cows. I really do like Moses this week. That Cowboys edge, Talangi, Holmes and Dearden are all off to Origin duty. So that side where Moses will be attacking, severely depleted for the Cows. And even, I'm not sure Leilua will be on that edge. It's only his second game back. So that whole edge haven't played much together at all. Saw Moses tear apart Ponga on his first game back. He could do some real damage down that side against the Cows, and that's my team too. So, I'm not just going to bag out your boys. My guys aren't going great either. So, look, I really like Moses. If you wanted a smoky option, a guy like Sean Russell has scored 3 tries in a row, and he'll be on that edge. He'll be on the end of that attack. So, like, if you couldn't quite make it up to a great option there, and you still wanted to have a swing at an Eels option, I wouldn't mind him either against that Cows edge.
At the Cowboys, they got Holmes, Tuolangi, Cotter, Dearden all off on Origin duty, but Jason Taumalolo in the reserves, so he could easily make his comeback from injury. Warriors v the Broncos. At the Warriors, interesting to see Metcalf named at 5'8", so he's there for his first game of the year. All the mail was that he would start the season at 5'8", then he got a serious hamstring injury. He's worked his way back through New South Wales Cup. So he's there this week alongside Sean Johnson, Jackson Ford back in that team too, and Chance Nickel-Clockstad is another crucial number this week as well for Supercoaches. Who's standing out for you at the Warriors?
Yeah, Metcalf's interesting because we know we've seen glimpses of how good he can be. I probably wouldn't go early on him. No, Tamaro Martin is, I think, on the NRL injury list. He's listed for a 15 return, so he's not far away, but that's probably the only thing that sort of holds me back from even attacking Metcalf there. But I think Tohu's the best of the Warriors buys. A lot of their attacking points have come through the middle with Egan and Fanua Blake. I was looking at Warriors Smokies, and I think, none of their backs have really set the world alight in terms of try scoring. Marcelo Montoya's got a decent 7 line breaks, but he hasn't produced the tries to come with it. So, if you wanted to go completely outlandish, you could try him. But I think Ford, Tohu are the guys there.
At the Broncos, we've got Tristan Saylor making his club debut at fullback. Obviously, a whole bunch of people on Origin duty, including Reece Walsh, Haas, Flegler, etc. Dean Mariner gets his debut on the wing as well. So he could be a cheapie to keep somewhat of an eye on. Rabbitohs v the Raiders. At the Rabbitohs, they got Campbell Graham named despite being ruled out of that Origin squad. Damien Cook's there as well after missing the Origin team. And interesting to see Kaloa Matangi named on the extended bench. He was originally a guy I had earmarked as a buy-round purchase, then went and got injured, but now he's back a fair way ahead of schedule. So he's a guy that I'll be watching this week to see if he makes that team sheet.
Yeah, he was fantastic at the start of the season. He was playing bits on the edge and being really devastating, running at opposition halves, and then he was coming into the middle and doing a lot of grunt work there, playing 80 minutes. So I think if he's available, he's certainly going to be a pod. Anybody who had him at the start is going to be well off him. So, like, if you're looking for a second rower who can do some damage, then, yeah, he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on.
The Raiders, rather. We've got Hudson Young out through Origin, of course. Elliot Whitehead is injured. And with those two guys out in the forward pack, it means Tapane goes to lock. What are your thoughts there? I think it could be increased minutes, but perhaps he'll be pacing himself to hit those minutes.
Yeah, interesting, because I've got Big Joe, and he had 58 minutes last week, which is his best game time of the season, and he had his lowest score.
Yeah.
The first time he's gone below 50. So it's hard to tell with Joe. Like, sometimes he can crack out 80 in 40 minutes. So I don't know. Like, I'm still happy to own him, but it's just hard to get a read on, exactly where he's at this year. He's not doing bad enough to move him on, but he's not doing good enough to be super happy with it. Hopefully this move to Lockie does get longer minutes and more involvement.
Knights v the Sea Eagles. We mentioned all the moves at the Knights before, but Ponga to fullback and Miller to the bench is big Supercoach news. And then onto the Sea Eagles, of course, they're missing their Origin players, DCE, Turbo, plus Jake Turbo is out for 6 weeks with a calf. Looks like he tried to rush himself back too quickly for Origin and he's done his calf again. So that's a blow for them. They've also got Jake Arthur straight into the squad, but on the extended bench. Alok Artu standing out for me a little bit. And obviously Ruben Garrick's guy who I've owned for a while. Probably wouldn't be going out of my way this week to bring him in, but was a good get over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. I think looking at the rest of the Manly team, it looks pretty scratchy. If Garrick was at fullback, I'd feel confident he'd put up a good score this week. But on the wing with what's inside him, I don't know. I mean, Schuster was obviously great last week, so I think it's a nice little bonus for us super coaches that he's come back well and looking good. So there's not much I'd really sold on at Manly and that I would want over this period, given Cherry Evans and Turbo out. That leaves them pretty thin. So the one guy I would just keep an eye on at the Knights is Gagai, another one that got snubbed by the Origin selectors. His Supercoach numbers have been ridiculous this year. Mid-50s base and power. He's a tackle bus. I think he's number 4 for tackle bus. He's just incredible work rate. So, like, if you're looking for a revenge game for a guy with some upside, he'll be pretty cranky this weekend, I reckon.
Yep, no, good call
Expensive, but no doubt he'll be up for a huge one.
Good call. Look, that is it for our team's podcast, round 13. Massive thanks to the mastermind, Ian Maybanks. As always, you've come up with lots of things that I never would have thought about, and it's got me going back to the drawing board. So hopefully people at home are thinking exactly the same. We'll get you on the show again sometime soon. Until then, we'll catch you for the for the Game Day podcast at 11 a.m. on Thursday. We'll catch you then.
See you guys.